Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of Live in the Field. I'm Tommy Phillips, County Extension Agent for Ag and Natural Resources in Van Zandt County. Joining me today is Stephen Goen, Ag and Natural Resource Agent in Rains County. Today's topic, we're going to talk about some basic winter pasture management and establishment. And two of the reasons that we actually establish winter pastures in our area are, number one, to extend our grazing season for our livestock, whether it be cattle, horses, or whatever you might have, to extend that grazing season. We all know we try to do things as economically as we can, and in doing that within a winter pasture where these animals can actually graze is a lot more economical than it would be trying to feed these guys out of a hay bale or out of sacked feed. The other reason we try to get a winter pasture established and get these guys grazing on that is the nutritional value. A lot of our winter pasture, whether it be small grains or cool season annuals, are really high in nutritional value, very highly digestible, and a lot more energy than they would be if we're feeding these guys out of a sack of feed. So now we're going to kind of move in and talking about our soil fertility when we get this established. So what we want to talk about soil fertility is we want to get a baseline of where our soil's at before we ever get going. And now we're kind of already behind the 8 ball. Here we are, the first week of September, and we're talking about planting within the first 3 to 4 weeks of September, early October. We really need to go ahead and get the soil samples done if we haven't done so already to see where we're at. Some of our soils around here, especially in our East Texas area, are very, very acidic. They may need some lime. And if we get below about a 6.0, we start getting some tie-ups in our nutrients, and they don't have really good productivity, especially in our legumes. So we really need to get that soil fertility tested. It's a really great $13 that you can spend. Not only will it help you get a better baseline where you're at for your winter pasture, but it'll also help you get started next season with our summer perennial grasses as well. So Stephen's going to kind of talk to you now about getting established and some of our seedbed preps.
All right, thank you, Tommy. There are several ways to use this equipment and get this stuff planted. First of all, we talk about sod seeding in established Bermuda grass pastures. A lot of times what we'll do is we'll have that Bermuda grass pastures, we'll graze it through the first of September, mid-September, and then what we'll do is go in there and sod seed it with no-till drills, planters, and what you'll need to do is make sure that grass is only about 2 to 3 inches tall in order to do that, because if you don't, you're not going to have as good a stand come up as you would like. And what we can do is use, when we sod seed, we can sod seed ryegrass, we can sod seed different types of cereal rye or cereal grains, and so we can use that process, or if you would like, you can also have a prepared seed bed such as this. And one of the things I wanted to show you on prepared seed bed is it doesn't take much of a plow to do this, but when you get your seed bed ready, you got to be sure you don't plant the seed too deep. And if you'll look here, I'm going about 1.5 to 2 inches deep in this piece of ground right here that's already been plowed, but it's rained on and it's hardened a little bit. So all we would have to do is sling this seed, drag it a little bit, and it's only going to go in about 1 inch, 1.5 inches deep. Whereas I walk over here to stuff that's freshly plowed, if I lightly put my foot down, it's going to go 3 to 4 inches deep. And so what we would end up doing is planting that seed too deep. So once you get that planted, go ahead and either let the rain pack it down, or use some type of packer to pack it down, and that way you don't get your seed too deep. And of course, when you use cereal grains, they're going to be a bigger seed than the ryegrass seed, but so the smaller the seed and the deeper you get it, the worse off you're going to be is getting a good stand. So Tommy is now going to discuss
Our seeding rates.
rates.
So you've got some options when you start looking at winter pastures, and I always say that I don't like to put all my ducks in one basket. I like to have a varied seeding varieties when I plant, especially when we're grazing beef cattle. So I like to mix in not only ryegrass, but I mix in some cereal grain and some cereal rye as well. And that's a misconception, and Steve and I always talk about this, and we get those calls that, what's the difference between ryegrass and rye grain? Well, they're two totally different ones. So you're talking rye grain, such as Elbon or Maton, is actually a cereal grain as opposed to rye grass that's a cool season annual. So I do like to mix in some ryegrass at about 20-25 pounds. Mix in a cereal grain, whether it be rye grain or some oats or some wheat at about 80 to 90 pounds an acre. And then if you really have your pH or soil fertility where it needs to be, is mix in some legumes, whether it be some cowpeas or mix in some clovers or some vetch. That gives you a little bit more nutritional value in your planting as well. But you also get the benefit of having your legumes in there that gives you that nitrogen fixation, and you get some free nitrogen fertilizer at the end of that grazing season for your perennial grasses in the summer. And those legume seeding rates vary depending on what you're planting. It could be anywhere from 2 to 3 pounds an acre to 10 to 15 pounds. So consult your local extension agent, and they'll help you with a legume seeding rate on that.
One of the reasons we want to use both a cereal grain and a ryegrass is because a lot of these cereal grains will actually come off earlier. You plant them September, October, you should be able to graze by middle December to January. Of course, they're going to start playing out probably the middle of February, and about that time, your ryegrass really comes on strong, and we have grazing extended through May and June. So it gives us, when we do both, it'll actually extend that grazing period for those grasses.
And we just kind of want to end on, the fertility throughout this growing season. Unlike our perennial warm grasses that we're continually fertilizing throughout the year, especially if we're cutting hay, typically 2 fertilizations on your winter pastures a season's enough. We get these guys established in September, October, if the conditions are right, and it looks like it's going to be this year. 1 application around Thanksgiving to give it a good boost, especially if we've got those small grains in there. And then again around mid to late January, early February, as we get into that ryegrass starts coming on, and that should get you through the rest of the season. So we appreciate y'all being with us today. If you have any more questions, please consult your local county extension agent. Thank y'all for joining us.
Thank you.